Hello, good afternoon. My name is Shekhinah B, representing the Women's Coalition for Empowerment, and this is our final installment of Behind the Curtain. Behind the Curtain is a three-part series, moderated discussions full of live performances showcasing local talents, intersecting cultures, spanning generations to celebrate the emerging works they produced, their experiences in the creative sector. Our guest panelists include BIPOC creatives who have made a significant impact in our creative ecosystem. I introduce to you Andrea Jackson. Put your hands together for Andrea Jackson. And also Al Reid Jr. Put your hands together for Al Reid Jr. and his afro. And I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce the amazing team that helps to make this go great. So I have Tym Johnson on bass. Woo! Just let him out. We have Dizz on drums now. And we have, Mr. Charles on keys, AKA Clef. We have Zoe on house. We have, thank you, Styx on sound and Jason on videography. And thank you guys so much for everything that you do in the Rotunda family. All right, so I'm gonna start with you, Andrea. I know this has been, this is a special installment, I have to tell you, because we typically get primarily the artist's perspective about their experiences behind the curtain and behind the scenes on the creative sector. And we're bringing in you as being a talent manager. I'm gonna just run down your bio that I created. Her latest book is coming out, How to Do It in the Industry. Okay, it's coming out next year. So Andrea Jackson is a producer, a promoter, an events curator of AMJ Entertainment, keeping music alive. She's worked with some of Philadelphia's leading talent for Black entertainment in the region. She supports the development of circulating Black dollars with the local creative ecosystems. Her work creates jobs, fosters relationships with Black arts institutions. Her community groups in social media is upward to over 6,000 members and counting. Oh, I did my research. And if you have an event, a concept, or are an artist in need of paid performance opportunities, she is the one to get with. Andrea Jackson. We gotta show some love. I could have been on your PR team. I mean, yeah.
Wow, I couldn't have done that better myself.
And we appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you. And as I introduce who I affectionately call my little brother, Little Al, Al Reid Jr. is I had to take a deep breath as I say this because I'm so proud of you. So proud watching you grow up. From cornrows to afro, is a Philly-born saxophonist, now bassist, musician extraordinaire, a songwriter and arranger, producer, a boxer, and a prior real estate loan specialist. Al wears many hats. I literally watched him grow up, and I affectionately call him Little Al. Not so little so anymore. Nope. I've also had the esteemed pleasure of being featured on his most recent album, The Middleweight Champ. He has worked tirelessly to maintain the legacy of his late father, Al Reid Sr., Coast to Coast Band, now as the band leader and the manager of the Coast to Coast Band. Outside of leading the big band, Al is one part of a jazz fusion group where he performs his original music and rearranged covers. And we hope to see more of this soon.
Yeah, definitely got a lot coming, a lot of store.
That's word on the street. Okay. Are you putting a little bass in your voice for this interview, or is that really?
I'm not. No, this is my voice.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna really dive in, and I don't know if you need to you're comfortable holding your sax. You good?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay, great. So I brought you guys together because I'd like to hear the perspective from your point of view in working with artists. What can artists do to make your jobs easier?
Okay. Well, it's very important that you first love yourself. Mm-hmm. And in loving yourself, it's important that you create a fan base, create followers that would follow you no matter where you're at. Also, get your bios together.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Oh, yes.
Can we talk about that for a minute? That's one of the biggest problems I have with artists because now that I'm stepping into the curatorial section of things, I have a struggle. There's so much talent here, but people are not taking control over their own individual brands, which makes it very difficult to secure gainful paid opportunities. I'm sorry, tell us more.
That's okay. But you're correct. As a promoter, I find it very difficult to try to pull together a promotional package for artists, especially artists that are not publicly known or internationally known to the general public. It makes it very difficult for me to present you. People are like, well, who is that person? And their name doesn't mean anything to the public.
Right.
So having a great EPK.
Yeah. And that's the electronic press kit for those that are not familiar with the...
Not handing me a CD. That is so old.
We're not,
or a piece of paper.
We can't use that term anymore. That term is no longer PC. We have to say it's antiquated promotional technology material. My brother, Al Reid Jr., any thoughts about that? What can artists do to make your job easier?
Well, I deal with artists from a different perspective as far as,
Absolutely.
using them for, entertainment purposes, as far as, doing performances and shows. So I would say you guys were spot on as far as, the promotion part.
Yeah.
I would say as far as if you're a person with talent looking to get with a band or something like that, one of the easiest things you can do is literally just be professional in your communication and just put the work in. Because that's really what it's about. A lot of artists kind of struggle with getting their brand and stuff out because they're not consistent enough with what they're doing. And it could be hard to be consistent. I have a life just like everybody else does. It gets hard, but it's just one of those things where if you're doing it, you got to do it. You got to put the work in.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I can honestly say I get a lot of hate mail because people, we're not clapping for that. I get a lot of hate mail, and I think a lot of it has to do with I'll see an artist that I absolutely would love to work with. Let's say I saw an artist that works in a band, and they've been working in that band for how long? And I'm guilty of it in my previous experiences, so I'm not above it. I just understand it, and I understand it now from both sides. When I was in a band, I didn't think about getting headshots for myself. You know what I would send? I would send the band's photo. So now they're contacting the band because the band, they're like, well, you're like the seventh person in the picture. It's not you. And oftentimes they'll send a picture that's not like high definition, high quality. It doesn't translate well on the technological systems on the webs and on different media platforms. Then artists don't talk about themselves. They don't know how to articulate what it is that they do well enough to secure a job. The same way you would get a resume or a cover letter or a CV for a job, it's the same thing for our, turn of events. A lot of times they don't really prioritize this, and it makes it hard. You'll have a singer like, I can sing, come to the open mic. It's not 1995. Nobody's coming out to the open mic anymore. People want to see the talent before I even meet you so that I could decide if I want to meet you. If you are not investing into your own package, why should I invest to promote you and put you out there? And like you said, a loyal fan base with your band. Don't you have like media outlets for the band so that people can follow you? You got a newsletter, you have a Facebook, professional Facebook page where
Absolutely.
you have a website. You just did some updated pictures, didn't you?
Yeah, and I'm actually about to do some more.
You just
To your point, further investing. And,
Didn't you do a video? So artists, can I just say something? Artists, if you are not investing in yourself, your EPK, the electronic press kit, your bio, your headshot, the most recent videos and or audio, why should I care? Why should they care? Why should they hire you? I think it's very entitled and selfish. And it's really you doing a disservice to yourself. And I've been there. And I know there are financial concerns about, well, I'm not making enough money to pay for a high quality photographer to take my picture, right? There are so many free outlets in Philadelphia. If you live in Philadelphia, you can get free headshots. The library does them all the time, all throughout the year. The Free Library in Philadelphia does it all year. In terms of like audio, if you have a cell phone, somebody has a video of you somewhere. You don't have a YouTube channel, but I should just trust that you can get there. Can we talk about cars? Can we talk about cars?
Uh-oh.
I can't talk about cars. I'm sorry. As the moderator, I will direct this. I know this is a long question, but doesn't it make the job easier having like reliable transportation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know it's challenging for a lot of artists because of the financial components of owning a car. It costs a lot, especially today.
Right, right.
The price of gas.
The price of gas is a lot, but securing no job makes it even harder.
Yeah.
Because if you're not working, then you're not making money to pay for the gas.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like you have to decide what are your priorities. And if your priorities are not including investing in yourself, like, you're like, well, I'm talented. Okay, well, how does that translate to making money for both of us? It's not a favor to me because you're talented when we're in a concentrated environment of multitudes of talent. That's why they'll say, how was that person? People got mad that I was involved in certain things. And they're like, she can't even sing like that. Well, I have my updated website and my headshots, my videos, and you know, my electronic press kit stays pretty tight. It allows me to venture into spaces that some people may not have the opportunity to do so. So I say invest in yourselves. Any further points on that subject? Don't be shy.
Well, I mean, we kind of nailed it. I mean, honestly, yes, reliable transportation is definitely essential if you're going to be a working musician, only because you can find yourself in many different places, traveling from Philadelphia, Delaware to Shore. If you're working like that,
Yeah.
you know, that's the goal when you need to have a car. It's a necessity.
I was in the mountains on Friday, so yeah, I needed a car because there were no, SEPTA didn't go to the section of Media, Pennsylvania where I was doing a corporate event at, what was it, Tyler Arboretum? Does anybody familiar with that venue?
I've heard of it.
Tyler Arboretum. Mm-hmm. It's in the mountains. I felt like I was going to I was going to Nepal, the Nepal section of Pennsylvania. Matter of fact, my GPS went out a few times. Uh-oh. I didn't see a SEPTA landmark anywhere. I don't think Uber was allowed to go out there, so there's that. And at a certain time and point, like, you might not be able to get an Uber or a Lyft. So now, how are you going to get back home?
And you know, speaking of cars, put you into transportation, being on time. That is like if you have sound check, no one should be in the audience when you're doing sound check. Speaking of perfection, this young man here,
Oh yeah,
he was here way early. Awesome.
Yeah,
it
I
is
guess
important that
didn't
you're
mention
on
I felt
time.
it. I felt that in my spirit, Clef.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this. Dear artists, your communication is definitely important, especially with emails. I get so many conversations about things that I really outline emails very clearly. And people just have selective eyes, selective ears, selective acceptances. That's why I like electronic correspondences, because it covers my integrity. So when people say, I didn't know that it was supposed to be at that time, then it's just like, well, I didn't just make this up today. I've been said that. You know, I get it. Emergencies happen, but it's just like, wow, you know, but what benefits and or supports do you provide to artists?
Well, for myself personally, I'm great at promoting. I'm on social media really big. I have a very large following, as you mentioned, and so you're getting a lot of exposure from what I do, promoting you when you're on one of my shows. Also, there's one artist that I worked with, and her video, when I did her video promotion, when I promoted her being on a show, it gave me so much pleasure because it was so well done. Mm-hmm. It was professionally done. People responded very positively to that. But then when I have to try to figure out stuff, it makes it very difficult.
I understand. Any benefits that you provide to artists? Because I appreciate the marketing aspect of that, and that also helps to get them more opportunities because now people get to see them in their best light.
Yeah.
And that you didn't charge them for that, Andrea?
No, I don't charge.
You did that for free?
Yes, I do.
We're going to have to talk about that later on. We're going to talk about that later on.
Well, I would feel like maybe from my angle of dealing with artists is more of a situation where I would say the benefit I would provide. Now, I have a fairly decent following with the bands and things like that, so it's a fair amount of exposure you would get.
Almost 10,000 now, right?
Yeah, there's been many people who've sung with us before who I've seen personally catapult to different levels from, being with us. And not only that, just a situation where me as myself, it's funny, I don't really consider myself much of a teacher, but a lot of people seem to learn a lot of stuff off me. So it's like, as far as producing things like that, because even when you're running the band and all that, when you bring a person in or whatever, your job as the leader or the MD or whatever is to, enhance them as much as you can. So it's a situation where, offering constructive criticism, making you literally the best you can be. And here's the other thing. We're more than likely not going to be together forever, but I'm going to help you get to the promised land, because that's just how I am.
What's the promised land?
The promised land is you as an artist getting whatever your dream is, because I have my dream, but that's a lot of people seem to forget that about other people. They have dreams too.
Yeah.
And if you can help each other, why not?
Yeah. What are the difficulties you face? For you, Andrea, as a promoter, as a curator, a producer, what difficulties have you encountered doing that?
Well, when I ask people for their videos or pictures, I get, like you were saying, a group picture that's not clear. You need to be able to, in order to do a flyer, you need a high resolution photo. Yeah. And if I do not have that, or I have to try to search on the internet for that person, when I search their name, I don't know who that person is or what they look like. So that makes it very challenging to be able to promote that person, even to create a flyer for that person. It makes it very difficult.
That's a great point. So artists definitely invest into getting like high resolution pictures and high definition video, because it makes it easier to for the promotional aspect of things. You? Difficulties.
So I would say that some of the more difficult things I encounter is in my line of work is more of just the people management, because especially when you're running 9-10 piece bands, you have a lot of different personalities you have to deal with, a lot of different things going on, so you definitely have to have a mind and be in close communication with everybody to make sure everything is flowing. Past that, sometimes you get issues where you might not have people who are necessarily up to the level that you need. It's difficult getting them there. And then even as far as replacements, sometimes that can get difficult because a lot of people can be unreliable. It's just, it's a lot going on. My number one thing a piece of advice I would give to anybody out there trying to do this is definitely consistency and professionalism. Yeah. Like being on time, clear communication, and doing your work.
You know what, that's a great point that you bring, because for you work with, you work pretty much weekly.
Yes. You
work pretty much like multiple days a week, every week throughout the year.
Yes.
What happens when someone gets sick? What happens if somebody is can't make it? What's your job at that point? Do you have replacements for replacements for replacements?
Well, yes. I mean, as a leader, you should always have a book of different contacts and musicians and people you can pull on in case of emergencies. I mean, things happen. People get sick. Emergencies happen. I mean, I would say some of the best advice in that situation is not to stress it so hard at the moment, because as a leader, you can literally sit there jumping off the cliff that somebody ain't making, but sometimes you have to realize that it's going to turn out all right. You just got to calm down and make your play. But to your point, yes, I would suggest that having other reliable musicians to call on would just be appropriate. I mean, sometimes it's happened to me before where, the day of something happened, I called someone else and got the job done, just simple as that.
I mean, I can appreciate that. Let me tell you, that is a big fear. Have you ever had that fear, the day of the show, you promoted everything, the people who brought you in to either bring the team in, and you're just you're waiting I hope nobody gets into an accident. I hope nobody gets pulled over. I hope everybody stays alive. Because that, when I first started, that was the first thought in my mind. I said, what if this person dies before I get to, you're laughing, it's a serious thing.
Okay, that's a little extreme, but okay.
No. What if this person doesn't wake up? What if they get into a bad car accident? What if they, have a situation, they get locked up? They so many things could happen. They wake up and they find out they have COVID, These, especially in this day and age, you find out they got monkeypox, and monkeypox is real. So if something like that occurs and you're I have a contract with this space, or with the venue? What am I supposed to do to honor it in this way? Because they have the force majeure, where in the event, that's not on them, it's on you at that point because it's within a certain, whatever your contract pretty much says.
Right.
So now everybody else can be impacted adversely if your contract is everybody has to be here, if all of your pieces aren't there. Some contracts are really explicitly outlined in that way. I started being a little more savvy about my contracts since I had those fears, but at the same time, it's still a fear that I think about from time to time. So yeah, reliability, professionalism, integrity, and hopefully everybody has healthy living habits that tries to lower the probability of them not making it to the gig. So there's that. And what can institutions do to improve the business practices of what you do, bringing in the talent? What can they do to improve?
I guess for me, as far as I would guess that would be the places that I'm playing at. Okay. What could they do to make things better? Honestly, I mean, I enjoy a lot of the places I play at. I would say some of the number one things are like just the comfortability. Sometimes
the
like
pay.
Well,
the pay.
Hey, listen, the gigs pay what they pay. I tell everybody in the music industry, no gig is the same. There are big gigs, there are little gigs. That's just how it is. And a lot of people seem to want to think that you're supposed to get a set rate. That's not how this industry works. but yeah, I would say obviously, yeah, we can get paid more money. That's always a plus. But I would say as far as anything else, I mean, it's just more having a great sound man and a nice stage. Other than that, most musicians are typically happy with that.
You know, I remember there were some gigs early on in my experience. And this was the size of the stage right here. This was the stage, and we had 17 people were supposed to stand on the stage. We're like, really? And they're like, no, we want everybody on the stage. I'm like, well, can some people be on the floor? And they're like, no, everybody needs to be elevated on this stage. And then I said, oh, okay, so now we're just gonna be sardines on the stage. Yeah, I would absolutely say institutions need to do a better job of, if I am provided with an opportunity to curate or produce or perform, just clearly outlining those expectations. One, at this point, when I work with institutions directly, I'm not agreeing to anything without a contract. And two, I need the language to be specified that it's like mutually beneficial to everybody involved. Some people get really iffy with me because I put out contracts and I'm like really explicit about how I want things to be done. But I'm just simply setting boundaries, professional boundaries that would benefit you and me. If I say it's gonna pay $10, then it's gonna pay $10. So if I say there is no rain date, there is no rain date. If I say there is a rain date and you agree to that contractually, then I expect to see you at the rain date. The issue I have sometimes with, actually, I don't have this issue with institutions. It's typically individuals. Individuals will have a contract and all the outlined aforementioned details and then ask the very same questions that has been in the details. You ever find that artists don't read contracts or they don't read emails?
No, they do not.
A lot of them don't. I ain't gonna say all.
Not all.
Asking questions that have already been like explicitly outlined. And I remember there was a band leader that I worked with in the corporate scene, and he would be very like curt and be like, and I remember I was guilty of it too, and I would say, hey, you know, what door are we gonna go in? It's outlined in the email. I didn't like that at the time. It's in the email. He could just answer the question, right? But he'd be like, it's in the email. Now, as of today, I'm gonna start saying, it's in the email. It's in the document. It's in the document. It's in the email.
And people do get offended when you tell them it was in the email.
Why? Because it's not my fault you didn't read it. You got to read it. It's your life. What do you sign? You signed away. You signed and agreed to a specific terms, and we agreed to it. Only thing sometimes artists look at is maybe the date and just to make sure the money. That's what. I'm gonna skip all of this. I'm like, damn, I could have said I'll sell your soul to the devil, but you just want to see the money. Okay, that's the crazy part for me. Outside of being creatives, do you have conventional jobs outside of music? And if so, how do you manage varying the two different working styles?
Well, I'm retired, So for me,
Well, I need $1. You getting a pension? All right, I need $1.
this is my life. The music is my life, so I have all the time in the world for it. So
Well,
that's a plus.
okay, well, Andrea,
But there was a time when I was working and doing promotions, and
what was that like?
it was hard. It was hard. It was hard trying to juggle your work schedule. You're tired. You're up all hours of the night. It's a lot of work.
Conventional jobs outside of the creative.
So right now I'm doing music full time, but
Okay.
yes, I left my job a little while ago. So I was a mortgage loan officer. I did business in about 40 different states, closed loans all over the country. It was a great job. I loved it. But the thing for me was, I'm just gonna put this out there. It's just when my father passed away, I kind of had a choice to make whether I was gonna keep his legacy alive or stay in my mortgage job, because to be honest, both of those things at the same time, I just couldn't run full time. It really only worked for me because my dad was running most of the band part. I helped, do other little things in between, but not too much to where I couldn't handle my regular job. So it just kind of, I had a choice. And honestly, ever since I was a teenager, I wanted to be a musician, but my dad guided me a different way because, he lived that life and said, listen, if you do it this way, it'll turn out better. And, I listened to him and it did, so.
Okay. Do you find it like you have to fill big shoes because of that?
Well, I would say no. I mean, because, a lot of people, you know who my father is and all that. And, for me, it's just, I really relish the fact that a lot of people see me and think of him. It keeps his memory alive. But, I'm me at the end of the day. I'm the second version. So I have my differences and other things that I do.
I'm gonna say this: your dad is a much better dancer. He's a much better dancer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
He's maybe
I'm not
Al
gonna-
Reid
I'm not
Sr.
gonna-
Rest in peace. I'm gonna just say this: Al Reid Sr. I remember we did the first Earth, Wind and Fire show at Havana's. Your father did all the choreography from Remember the Time, and he jumped off a 10-foot stage and was still breakdancing and didn't lose a beat.
No. I
Didn't
know.
lose a beat in an Egyptian costume.
Yeah, to his age, man, he definitely was a.
Eric is my
really
husband is my
energetic guy.
witness. What did he not do that? Okay, just
Yeah, he can. Yeah, I can 100% not dance better than him. It's just what it is.
That's okay. That's all right.
But you know what? I'll say this though.
Yeah.
He passed me the baton as far as my plan about
Definitely.
maybe 10 years back. So I'll take that.
You know what, Al? We go back a little bit. I remember before when you was a
Yeah, when I was
Young.
like, 4'8".
you were young. There was a video
I
that
had
I
been
saw
about maybe
recently.
13, 14, something like that.
You were definitely teen, and I was like, how is he getting into these clubs with us? He's sitting there, he looked like a child, like he didn't have no peach fuzz back then. He was short.
100% looked like I was not supposed to be there. Yes.
But he definitely come in with his suit on and just looking real stern. You were real tough. You was kind of evil back then.
I was not evil.
He was kind of
okay?
evil back then.
I was a teenage boy like everybody
Is that
else.
what
We
it was?
all have our things.
I
Man.
don't know what it was. But
Plus,
yeah.
I was short. I got picked on a lot.
Really?
Yes, I was small.
You're not like small
Oh
relative.
no, I'm regular height now. I'm cool, but back then, oh my God, I was short. I mean, I remember the first girl I tried to talk to in high school. She showed me straight up, "You too short."
Was she short?
No, she was taller than me.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, she's our special guest today. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. At this point, you guys are doing this completely full time now,
Yes.
and you enjoy doing it. I know you both love doing this.
Yes.
So my next question is, has being in the sector, in your respective positions, been financially profitable for you? And are you sustained financially through your creative work?
Me, it's still been a struggle financially.
Okay.
I'm putting out a lot more than I'm receiving. So I have not found it yet. I'm still working on that.
Okay.
Working on ways to be able to still hire artists and give the public live entertainment as well as eat myself.
Can I say something though? Now we've had certain talks, just you and I.
Yes.
And I'm going to say this. This is something that for many years, many years, I was a part of the vocal collective Sisters of Tune under the Women's Coalition for Empowerment. And most people may not know this, but for the first several years, I never got paid. I never got paid. I never got paid. You can close this up, Jason. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Shekhinah B. I'm reporting live from the Rotunda regarding the behind the music, behind the curtain, really behind the music and the curtain. I didn't get paid for several years. I was so excited to get an opportunity to put people in position to play, to build up my credibility. So I know how that feels. I know how that feels. That day is over. There is no contract that will be rendered where my budget as either the curator, the producer, the model, I will come up with something, but I need to be paid. Pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. And I remember your father back in the day, he was saying, I ain't making no bread off this. Dude, how many gigs y'all gonna come up with? Because I ain't making no bread off this. You know what I mean? And for the life of me, I was like, man, that's crazy. But when you believe in something so strong and you're so passionate about it, you want to see it grow, and you may not have unrestricted money to like invest in it initially. It makes it hard. And yeah, I had grants coming from the organization's project grants, but those grants are very restrictive. So after a while, I started to have to create. I created a lane for myself, and people are still trying to figure it out, which, by the way, I'm going to teach you how to do that with the Art Economic Empowerment Initiative. So please sign up. The cohort 1 closes June 30th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I can show you how to, one, secure funding, unrestricted monies where you can invest into your creative enterprise, whatever that may be. At this point, I started to treat myself differently because I felt like I was worthy of being treated differently. One, I'm going to be paid, and every contract, I'm outlining a budget that includes me as being a part of that. And then I have a budget for all of the artists involved, and depending on the circumstances of that budget, in addition to their pay, my pay, maybe some additional perks like free parking, you know, like a bar tab, something along those lines that includes accommodations. One, not because I just want to be a diva, but because I want to make a situation comfortable for people to want to work with me again. Another thing is having and I'm going to say this not being arrogant or cocky, but because it's just a fact. I'm great with managing money. I'm great with money management, which is why in my position, we have a lot of opportunity for unrestricted funds. We wait for the money, but we pay the artist first. That's so hard, because a lot of times, y'all wait, gotta wait. And if people, they may not understand that. They're like, well, I mean, hopefully y'all telling them that, but artists have to wait sometimes. But we, at the Women's Coalition for Empowerment, when they work with us, they don't have to wait. And that's a part of me restructuring the finances to include that opportunity for people to quickly get their money, because I always think of this. When I've done gigs, like, don't you start, I see the face.
I'm agreeing.
Okay. I'm not used to him agreeing with me.
No,
okay.
I like where you're going. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead. I like where you're going.
So, with that being said, a lot of times when it comes to the pay, and artists are in the weight of the pay, gotta have that conversation up front. Gotta have that conversation up front. Because if people don't know, then it's just like, that's just not right. That's just not, it's not good business. And then it makes them question your integrity. It makes them question whether or not they want to work with you. It's crazy. But thoughts.
Well, I would actually say you're very correct in mostly everything you said as far as the the pay and all. Because honestly, it's just a thing of open communication, letting people know up front what they're going to be paid and when they're going to be paid. For example, if I hire you for a gig and I say, hey, the gig's going to pay $200, you're going to be paid that day. Great. That day, when the gig is over, I'm going to pay you $200. That's just how it goes. Now, if that can't happen for whatever reason on my end, I'm going to figure out another way to pay you and figure it out on my end later, because, that's what you should do as the leader of the situation.
So I remember there was a guy, he hired me for a gig. He said, and this is, I no longer have this fear. Artists sometimes fear to ask how much they're getting paid. They are a lot of times afraid or insecure to ask How much am I getting paid? When am I getting paid? How am I getting paid? Right? So I remember I asked the guy there was a guy who hired me. This is a long time ago. And I said, yes, I'd like to know how much the gig is paying. He was like, hey, are you available for such and such date? Tentatively, how much is it being paid and how are we being paid? Because that makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
So he was like, well, I guess the agent brought them in. And at the end of the night, one, I shouldn't have to wait at the end of the night to get my money, right? Because you didn't wait at the end of the night to get my service, right? So at the end of the night, the money was, I'm just waiting. And he was like, well, you got to wait till about next week. I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all, and I'm going to tell you why. Because my thought was, what if something happened to this man, and let's say, God forbid something happened to him, what I'm going to do, go in his pockets at the funeral? Like, how is that going to work if I have to ask that question? Who am I ask? Like, where do I go, especially if I don't have a contract? And a lot of times, let's talk gigs, especially in the corporate scene, or you work a lot.
Yeah.
You may not have the capacity to like give contracts for every single gig, right?
Right.
So typically in the corporate scene, there's relatively no contracts with the artists. That's just how it is. I've never had an issue in the corporate scene really getting my money, but I remember in that instance, I didn't get my money till the following week. And then I said, all right, let me tell you something. You enjoyed what you saw? Did you enjoy the fact that I was professional, on time, and everything? I was like, oh my God, you were great. Now, if you want any more of that information or any more of those services, then I'm going to need my money the day of. I'm going to need it electronically rendered, or I'll take a check, and it can't be a post-dated check. It needs to be able to clear when I walk out the door, because if my check bounces, then I'm probably going to bounce. And I don't have the time or the patience or the interest to engage in situations like that without the clarity. If I choose to, then that's one thing. But if we had a discussion and then you just change up, that's going to be a problem for me. So. Well,
you're very fair in thinking that and saying that. I mean, honestly, open and clear communication is what, should happen. At the end of the day, if you're unclear on how you're going to get paid and then you get there, yeah, you're susceptible to pretty much anything that happens. I mean, we're all working musicians. We all been in the world. We had plenty of different gigs where we had to wait 2 weeks for a check, maybe 3 weeks, a month. It all depends. But to your point, that's it's just about the communication. If you tell me I'm going to get paid that day, I expect to get paid that day.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I must say,
yes.
and for my reputation, people that have worked for me personally always got their money sometimes the day before. I've actually paid, because I work with people that I trusted, and they always had their money the night before.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, Andrea, you trust nobody in this game. Nobody's to be ever trusted in that regard. You trust them as far as you can throw them.
Well, I can co-sign that because she was very professional with me.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I can co-sign here. That's valid.
You, Al.
No, I can also attest, because I believe you work with Elegant in the audience, and she...
Unfortunately, those were not my personal things, but yeah, they were someone else's.
Okay.
So I was under their control, but they got paid at the end of the gig, but I paid all of, for my personal events, when AMJ Entertainment is producing the event, my artists are paid when they walk in the door.
I know that's right.
Before, yeah. Because I don't, I've also done management, so it's very important that you secure their money. And I have gone for broke because of that on many occasions, because you can't depend on the door.
Right.
There's been promoters that will say, well, they avoid you. Because as a manager, I've had promoters avoiding me because they didn't have all my money to pay. And my artists need to be paid before they hit the stage.
I know that's right. That's a great thing, because it changes the energy of the performance, especially if I'm anxious and I don't know you, and it's just like, wait a minute. All right, we on the third set, I didn't get my money, and if this person thinks that they're going to walk out the door.
And they do.
I have a story to tell you. It's story time with Shekhinah B from Behind the Curtain. It's story time. Many years ago, my very infantile stages of being a vocalist, I was so excited to work with someone. This person, this demon, at the end of the gig, I'm gonna say it because this is what they were. This demon at the end of the night gave me $5 and said because it was an open buffet that I was fed, as if I was some homeless transient that you laughing, Dizz, it's true. As if I was paid a wrinkled, sweaty butt $5 bill. And I remember feeling so powerless. I felt like I was so embarrassed. I cried on the inside because I felt like, and this is before I even had a car. This person drove me to the gig, so I said, I can't say anything crazy to this person because they'll leave me all the way in Conshohocken, where the gig was. And for those that know, yes, it was that person. And he's where he belongs. And like I said, Andrea, your eyebrow just moved to 2 inches to the back.
I just can't believe that.
I was given $5. Oh, that same person did it to you too. And when I was given $5 and the free ragtag buffet, and that person drove me to the gig because I didn't have a car, I remember sitting and it was an inner cry in myself. I was so embarrassed. I was so angry. I was so hurt because I said, wow, I worked my butt off on that gig. I dressed up. I did the thing. I did everything. And you give me $5 and said, well, you ate. It was a buffet. There was a crackhead playing on the drums too. And he got paid. You laughing, it's true. And that person, and I remember them having the gall to say, do you want to do this gig again next week?
For $5 in the buffet.
$5 in the buffet.
For the combo.
For the combo, a 2-piece. He deserved a 2-piece and a quarter. But no, it was a really bad situation. And I know so many artists, please don't be afraid to ask what the terms of that agreement is. Don't quickly agree to any gig. Even if you're available, just say, I have tentative availability. I need to discuss more details of the arrangement. Get stuff, if you don't have a contract, get stuff in email. And it's not to say that people don't break contracts, but get something in writing that outlines the terms and the understanding. Because there are a lot of unscrupulous people who will take advantage of your eagerness to be out there, that they will exploit you and abuse you and financially, I'm not going to use that other word that I wanted to use because it may be triggering to others, but you can definitely be taken advantage of. You will be violated financially. So please do yourself a service and ask every question. If you find yourself in an environment where someone who wants to hire you is not willing to answer all of your pertinent, relevant, professional questions, then you should question whether or not you want to work with that person, because then that means they may not have your best interest in mind. So
I must say, I see how hard artists and musicians work. You have to learn the material and, also, of course, deliver the material. It takes a lot of energy to get up on that stage. I don't have that energy. I'm not a...
You on the stage, Andrea,
I'm not a
look at
mic
you.
person, but I totally respect when an artist and a musician goes through to deliver a phenomenal show. And it takes a lot to do that. And they should be paid and respected for their craft.
Absolutely.
It's very important. So
and on the
I'm
other
an
side,
advocate.
Absolutely. But on the other side, artists should also respect you as a professional bringing them into the environment, because there are, on the other side of things, since we're speaking to people who manage artists from varying points of view, there's an entitlement there, Let's talk about it. Did you smile? Oh my goodness. There's an entitlement. An artist could be they're super talented. They have the EPK. They have no following. No following. Yep. They have no following. So if you have no following, and now you're trying to aggressively negotiate a term, there's no guarantee. You can't guarantee to fill a black box theater. And traditionally, black box theaters are like less than 50 seats. A small theater, maybe like 30, 40 seats. You can't guarantee to fill a black box theater, but because you're talented and, you got teeth in your mouth and you look cute kind of sort of when you squint your eye, someone should pay you like prime rib style, payments. We got to stop that. You got to know where you at. You have to know what level you are on. So when people say, "Oh, I'm on another level," because they got on a commercial flight, sitting in a domestic economy, sub-economy seat with a pseudo celebrity who's now driving Uber. When you went on tour with said people or persons, and then you come back to your town and demand certain things because you were surrounded by said celebrities, it kind of makes it a little crazy when you have no following, because you're basing your success off of you're clout chasing. That's what the kids are calling it today. They're clout chasing. So you're on the coattails of someone else, but you yourself as an individual cannot guarantee 10 people to show up. But they should be paid, right?
Well, as from a promoter's standpoint, when I hire someone, I hire that person because I want your name, or yourself personally, to help put people in the seat. And it's, the attitude is more or less, well, you're the promoter, you're supposed to bring the people. Yes, I do, and yes, I will. But I expect I'm only hiring you because of your name, not because your talent, because there's a lot of very talented people that cannot put butts in the seats.
There it is.
I was told by by a gentleman who's in the industry, a professional, had a show in Florida. I had an artist I was managing, and I asked him, could this artist be open on his show? He says, can he sell tickets? And I'm sitting here, I was kind of confused at first. I'm like, this is all the way in Florida. No, he can't sell tickets. But he meant, can his name sell tickets?
That's important.
And if your name cannot sell tickets, then guess what? You have to sell tickets.
And
indirectly.
And this is the thing about the selling of the tickets that I don't, for me personally, and this is being completely transparent, just completely real. Mm-hmm. I personally couldn't fill a black box theater. Mm-hmm. But I don't, say, well, I demand this. There's certain things I'm just not going to do, not because of the money, but because of the work that's maybe included with the money that may not work for me. But I will say this. I do have a newsletter. I do have media following. When you're working with these venues and spaces, what is their responsibility to market alongside of you? And are they doing that well?
Well, in my experience, venues do not necessarily promote themselves. They depend on the promoters to do all the work, the promotions, the flyers, everything. And doing a show is a team effort. Everyone contributes one way or the other, either by just texting your friends and family and saying, hey, I'm going to be over here. Come and, check me out. Or the owners running the ad.
And it's so cheap to do so on media now. It's like, come on, you can't do that at all?
Not post the day of the show or the day before the show that I'm going to be at so-and-so. People usually have their social agenda already planned.
Months out.
Yeah.
Months out.
So it wouldn't hurt to just put it out there.
So that's a great point. To add on to that, in terms of like people with the media and having the promotions out there, what I find is that I work with, singers and musicians. They never promote, but they just want to show up for the gig. They never promote. Never promote. But then this got their hand out like, oh, you're going to hire me for something? For what? You don't even promote nothing that we're doing, so why should I hire you? And it doesn't cost you anything to share something on social media, working with artists that just are very thankless. They are very, show no gratitude for the opportunity. And then also, for you being a musician, how many of them have shared work with you? Has it been pretty equal for you?
Well, when you say shared work, what do you mean?
You provide opportunities, a lot of opportunities for musicians and talent. Has it been reciprocal in equity for you?
Oh, I would say yes, because a lot of the people that I've worked with, they've called me for things. We help each other, and I think Andrea kind of summed it up best. I mean, it's really a team effort when you're putting on an event or kind of whatever you're doing, if all parties involved aren't pushing, it's not going to come off the best it can. Which, especially when you have talented people, it can. And jumping back to your other point about the following, I mean, we live in 2022 now, and this is the age of technology. That's just where we are. 20 to 25 years ago, it was different. You didn't need a following. If you had, matter of fact, about 20, 25 years ago, if you didn't have talent, they was booting you out the door.
Right. Now it's
But
about
nowadays, it's not really so much about necessarily all the talent, but can you get people to follow you? How much of an influencer are you? So that's kind of really what the name of the game is. Now, I would say from another aspect, as far as dealing with, people, as far as hiring them for things, the entitlement. I mean, at the end of the day, I have a lot of love for all my Philly cats. There is so many talented people in this city. It's not even funny. And while I would love to pay everybody $1 million a piece, I just can't. Budgets are what they are. And sometimes, especially when you have different sizes of bands, things can change a little bit, which, can get a little complicated sometimes. But
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't have a problem with someone saying, that's just probably not the gig for me. I can respect that.
Yeah.
Now, if you say that's beneath me.
See, yeah, now, and to that point, again, like I mentioned earlier.
Especially if I don't know you like that, I'm like,
there's.
I need to see your analytical data and your following. I need to see your checks
and
and
I
your
agree with you because
credit score. I'm sorry.
Like that. And I agree with you. Sometimes people can be like that. I would say, again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, in this music industry, gigs vary. There's no one set rate for what you should get paid for. It all depends on the amount of work, the time. There's a lot of different little things that go into it. Now, for example, if you call me and say, hey, can you come up to the middle of nowhere, New York? Okay, what's the pay? $50. Okay, obviously I can't do that.
You wouldn't do that for me? I'm your sister. You wouldn't do that for me?
Yeah, exactly. That's just the tolls.
Right.
But,
and with the price of gas, with the price
Don't
of
mention tolls.
Tolls and gas, please.
But I would just say that, just trying to keep the most fair outcome you can control. Because obviously things are going to fall out of your control sometimes as far as, dealing with different people canceling, yada, yada, yada. But try to just make things as fair as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's only fair. I really appreciate, I don't say this enough, and I was gonna make a post about it, but I'm gonna say it because it's really coming from my heart. No, it's coming from my heart. I really appreciate the people who have held me down professionally, a lot of the people that I repeatedly work with, like you guys, Now, Clef, you kind of knew working with me, but I hope we can work together again because you were awesome coming out today, and I appreciate that. But there's a lot of people who, I'm not going to name names because I'll forget a name and then somebody will get offended. So I'm just going to say thank you, everybody who's singer, musician, external contractor, tech person, the people who have really had integrity consistently, professionally. I really appreciate you. And without your work, your ethic, your talents, your skills, none of what I'm doing would even, I don't even know if it would exist because that's a part of a lot of my, work, bringing in quality talent. Andrea's nervous because normally you are completely behind the curtain. See, Andrea,
Totally.
as a curator, she fosters the engagement with the institution and her space, and then she deals directly with the artists. So behind the scenes, dealing with the personalities of the venue, then the venue management team, and then the artists, and maybe their representatives. It's a lot that you do. Same thing with yourself, Al, like dealing with the behind the scenes things. It's a lot. People don't know. Only thing they want to see is
a whole lot.
pay me.
Finished product.
I want the money. That's it. I just like. Do you understand what goes into that? I recently had a neck transplant because my neck gets very stiff when I'm. No, this is a real thing. My neck gets very stiff when I'm in negotiations because I'm hoping to get what I'm asking for, and I'm hoping that they see the vision and they value whatever my proposed idea is in their space. So when I'm in negotiations, I'm like this. Yes, I'd like to have so-and-so. I'm glad they don't see me. Yeah, we're going to block out my neck when we edit this video so they don't see it. I get so nervous still to this day. I don't know if it's like the inner anxiousness of trying to get it done, but at this point, I'm never afraid to ask for anything that I want. The worst they could say is no. And if you don't ask, you won't get it. And don't be mad at the next person for asking what you failed to ask for. And that goes for artists, curators, promoters, band leaders, everybody. We're seeing the value of art post or pandemic. We're still going through a pandemic, you know. And a lot of places, some places started paying more, some places started paying less, some places are paying the same. So we have to consider we're living in inflationary times, so it helps when you try to sweeten the deal. So just ask for what you feel like you're worth with reason. And please have the analytical data. Remember we talked about this with what you ask of artists beyond their EPKs, bios, pictures, links, and sort. What other information do you require in terms of knowing whether or not they have a following?
Well, you know, I have a tendency, because I'm on social media a lot, I follow them. I watch what they do. I'm constantly watching what they do. And if I don't see any activity happen, I just had a situation where, where I was watching someone's activity, and I saw no activity at all. And so that concerned me, and I had to make some changes because of that. So at the end of the day, my responsibility is to have people in the audience. And if I cannot get those people in there with your assistance, then it's a problem. It's a problem. And you walk away with your money, but we walk away in major debt. Because to put on a show, you have electric bills that has to be paid, gas bills that has to be paid, insurance that has to be paid.
Can we talk about the insurance? Can we talk
there
about
you
the
go.
insurance? Hit my
Yeah.
tooth. The insurance. Insurance. That is a big deal. There is no contractual agreement that I have signed this year to date that did not require, they made it mandatory. They were like, look, do you have the COIs? We're using so many acronyms. I'm sorry, COI, Certificate of Insurance. And they want to be included on the Certificate of Insurance to waive liabilities from them. And now you are protected under the insurance. They're off of it. They have their own insurance, obviously. But they want at least a $2 million aggregate. And when I tell people this, they're like, insurances for events for the year can be under $1,000 for the year. If you don't want to pay for that, then you're not trying to work. That is the very minimum. Because for me, if I have this insurance, if something happens to Tim's bass under our event, we can file a claim. I always tell, artists, everybody should have their own insurance. Not just, the curators, the band leaders, but everyone, all musicians should have their own insurance. Because don't get mad at me if your equipment gets, I could decide if I want to file a claim and maybe potentially raise my premiums depending on how things were damaged. But if you are a serious performer, professional, you should have your own professional insurance. I have insurance for me as Shekhinah B as a brand, me personally, me professionally, and then there's organizational insurance for the purposes of events. So I think every artist should invest in it. We got to keep talking about investing into yourself. It's not cheap. It's not something that you should take lightly. It's something that you should take serious because it only protects you and the integrity of your, legacy if that's what you're trying to build.
Definitely.
I'm sorry, I had to talk about the insurance.
No, that's fine. But, there are a lot of expenses to put on a show.
Yeah.
Behind the scene things that people don't see or understand. There's a lot of costs involved that people don't see. And, I never ask an artist to devalue what you think your value is.
Yeah.
Because your value is who you are, and that's important, and it should be important. I would never ask you to settle for less. I give you my budget, I tell you what it is, you can either accept it or not. Now, once you accept the budget.
No,
Yeah.
Let me just say something right now. I'm going to say it without saying names. If you agree to the terms. This is why I have contracts for this, because I've had people that tried me. You won't try me on writing because one, I have emails. I resend emails to myself just so I can sleep better at night, just so that my teeth could be white. When I send out a correspondence and it clearly identifies the money, you agree to it, you check the box, you sign your signature. Don't come to me the day before the gig or the day of the gig and trying to strong arm me. So don't try me like that. Don't do that, especially.
I agree with what you're saying, because here's the thing about that. As far as the money situation, you can't like all right. Let me make sure I say this right. Because you was talking about how you
The contractual agreements.
Right, the contracts. So at the end of the day, once you sign a contract, that's what it is. You're supposed to your point, look at all of that stuff beforehand and make sure the money and all that is right. I mean, because here's what sometimes does happen, and I'm going to say this from an artist perspective, from not being a leader, from a musician.
No, go ahead.
Sometimes what happens is you get people who hire you for a gig. Now, this is typically non-contracted things.
Yeah. No,
but
I get it.
Somebody hired for a gig, all of a sudden they want you to do more work than what they paid for it.
Right. And let me tell you, this is why even when I have contracts, I specify how many sets, how long the sets are, what the start time, and the overall overview of the event. If you do not have the clarity, that's why it's important to ask those questions. I'm so glad you brought that up. You gotta have conversations, you gotta have communication. When I get into a situation where I feel like, if I even get the inkling that I feel like somebody's not trying to answer my questions, yeah, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to reach me February 31st, 2020, 2027, yeah, 2027. That's when I'll be available. I'm not playing with people. So they know they can't. I think I've set a standard from a public standpoint where people, sadly enough, people are intimidated by me. What's that about?
Oh, that I can't answer. I was actually going to comment on the contract, because I'm a personal fan of your contracts. They're very well constructed.
You like it?
Yes,
Oh,
very well
brother.
constructed,
Thank you.
very easy to see and read, and
they're mobile friendly.
And it's funny because I've had other people say things about contracts, and I'm just like, this is pretty standard. Why are you like not? This is standard. But and to that point, kind of even goes to show a situation of level. Just being realistic. Because at the end of the day, I consider myself a very talented musician. I think I'm pretty good.
You're very talented.
But
absolutely.
At the end of the day, I have experience, and I know gigs pay what they pay. I'm not going to be unrealistic with how I deal with people, because the other part of it is, as a leader or as a promoter, again, you have a certain budget you have to work with, and you want to make money too. We're all in this to make money. I'm not going to be unrealistic and try to charge you a price I know you can't pay.
That's the point. So sometimes artists, before you set your price, ask them what the budget is. Because sometimes you'll throw out a number, and that number, you could have undersold yourself, right? So I always say, just ask them what the budget is and what's the terms of the work. Because sometimes the gig may not pay a lot, but the opportunity in that environment may be very fruitful for my trajectory. It created other avenues for me to foster opportunities for creatives in our area, and that's important. And it all started from a free opportunity that was now evolved into something that created income for everybody. Because now the benefit is people that we've never seen before saw us, completely diverse, family friendly, from all walks of life, people that's not even from Philadelphia. They wanted to follow on the newsletter. Then a bunch of artists are like, hey, y'all paying artists to do such and such in there? How can we get down? Then it's, another space is like, well, we saw what y'all did here. Can y'all do that over here with us? We have a budget. Oh, well, then here's our contractual understanding, and here's what we need accommodations for, and it just works. So sometimes never sell yourself short. Ask if there's a budget. Try to partner with people. Don't allow the pay in all cases to eliminate the opportunity, because you never know, you could be turning down something that could be greater than your thought in that moment. So I just wanted to say all of that. What advice or solutions you have for creatives? Any advice?
I guess I'll take this one first. Well, the one thing I can really say, man, you just got to grind. You just got to work at it, and you got to be passionate about it. You got to really want to do it, because The music industry is hard. It's not easy. It's not an easy field. And if you're not really in it, you're not going to really get the money you need to really do what you need to do. And I say the same thing as far as boxing, because it's the same thing. You can't play boxing. If you're not going to be all the way in it, you don't want to. It's funny. I even thought about it. I'm like, maybe I should get back in the ring. Maybe I should jump back in and see what I got.
What?
But then I had to think about it. I'm a little older now.
No.
And then I'm like, if I'm not going to give it 100%, they're going to put me up against an Olympian, and then I'm probably going to get swept. Let me not do that.
And we don't want you to damage any of your hands or your mouth.
Yeah, I need these to play. Yeah, this.
Okay.
It's more important to play. Music is my passion, my first talent. But I just said that example just to say, if you're not going to grind at it, you're not going to put in the necessary work, research, be professional. If you're not going to do any of that, no need to step into this industry, because that's what you're going to need to survive.
Absolutely. And please, artists, stop being afraid of filling out W-9 forms. It's really free.
That's another one. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
everybody.
I hope 2020 taught a lot of artists a lesson, because that was the year that pretty much showcased what happens when you don't have those kinds of things in order.
Because the financial legitimacy of your career is reflective in the long-term potential of your life. Because we don't really have sick days, right? We don't have sick days.
No, you can't call them and tell them you're sick. They're going to be like, no, you got to play.
Either you're going to play or you'll never work again. You're not going to be available for every opportunity, every family event. I missed a lot of events when I was like real heavy. People
I get it. More than half my childhood was weekend gigging. I didn't do much else.
Yeah. That part, it's a real thing. So you're giving up a portion of yourself. So while you're doing so, why don't you take it serious and create an environment or create a lane where you could like have something for the future. You want to pay into Social Security. You want to pay Medicare. You want to have all of these things, because in the event something happens, you'll be replaced. We can't afford to get sick, or we can't even afford to die. Like you can't do it. Have your whole life or whatever insurance. What is it called? Life insurance. Life insurance. Have your life insurance. Have it. Gotta have it. It's hard out here, and yeah. Go ahead. Any advice?
Well, all the things that you guys are saying is on point. And just Al, when he was talking about the boxing insurance, go back to the insurance thing, where you need to insure. These are, what is it? Patti LaBelle has her legs insured.
Oh, yeah.
No, Tina Turner.
Tina Turner
has her legs insured.
J-Lo has her booty insured.
That's her money. So with musicians and artists, your voice is your money. Your hands, your mouth, that's your money.
That's true.
Invest in you, because you are a very valuable commodity.
Yeah. And
you have to invest in yourself. So insurance and paying taxes.
Pay your taxes.
Because it does pay out. Like you said, the pandemic.
The I, the R,
and the S. A lot of
S.
artists really suffered during that time because they did not have any track of income. And, they get the quick money and they run.
And just so you know, just because you're getting the cash doesn't mean that the venue isn't writing it off. So when they're going to get their 1099, or whoever's getting that money, any money over $600 within one fiscal year. I remember I worked at the World Cafe Live a couple of times, and they typically pay in cash. They will, one, you paying an entertainment tax. Two, they're going to 1099 you, okay? They will absolutely 1099 you. You be sitting there, wait, I spent all the money. I didn't even put aside anything for the taxes.
There you go.
Y'all better get a QuickBooks and a bookkeeper. So can you tell people where they can find you, and please promote your current and or pending projects?
Well, I'm AMJ Entertainment, and I am on all social media outlets. And at this time, I do not have anything currently coming up. But please support live music. It's so important.
All right.
Oh, well, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at smoothsax92. You could also look for me on Facebook under Coast to Coast Band Philly. That's with a number 2, Coast to Coast Band Philly. Check out our website everywhere we're going to be. Also, you can check out my Instagram for my other band, Unfinished Business. We got a project coming up that we're getting ready to start working on and get that out. We have a few shows coming up. Check out my social media for more details. And
I could do that. So it was great speaking with you guys, and I appreciate you being here and taking the time to share your perspectives for the final installment of Behind the Curtain. Thank you to our amazing sponsors, the Women's Coalition for Empowerment, the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy, the Rotunda. I'd like to give a shout out to our amazing band in the back, because we're going to ask for a nice little musical selection. I just want y'all to throw something together just for the final installment. So we have Tym on bass, we got Dizz. Oh, you letting everybody know you the horn player. We got Dizz on drums. We got, Charles on keys, aka Clef. I'd like to thank our team, Zoe, Styx, and Jason. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you being supportive. Everybody, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you. So yeah, give us a look. You mind if I sit here? I'm cool? Okay. that's all we have for today for Behind the Curtain. Thank you. Good night. And we'll be back next year.